on abrogation and contradiction in the Quran. Find out in Surah Mujadila, Ayah 2, and Surah Azab, Ayah 6, there is a contradiction or an abrogation. If it's contradiction, then why cannot the ayats on abrogation be applied between these two ayats? Allah says in Surah Mujadila, Ayah 2, those who pronounce zihar among you to separate from their wives, they are not consequently their mothers. Their mothers are none but those who gave birth to them. And indeed, they are saying an objectionable statement and a falsehood. But indeed, Allah is pardoning and forgiving. So he says here that Allah is pardoning and forgiving because they used to do this. Now, since the law has come not to even pronounce to give divorce to your wives, your mothers' backs. So this, and that none are their mothers except those who gave birth to them. And then we, in Surah Azab, it's stated in Ayah 6 that the Prophet has a better claim on the believers than they even have on themselves. Not only that, his wives are mothers to them. His wives are mothers to the believers. So here he calls the Prophet's wives as mothers of the believers. So the Prophet's wives should be taken as the mothers of the believers. However, they may be taken, it doesn't make sense when you apply Surah Mujadila, Ayat 2, excuse me, which is on the left side, those who pronounce. So the important part is they are not their mothers. Their mothers are none, but those who gave birth to them. And this is not even a law of God before that he would abrogate. So if you look at the abrogation verses, two of them, Surah Baqarah ayat 106 and Surah 16 ayat 101, you will see God says here in Surah Baqarah ayat 106, whatever message we abrogate, whatever message we abrogate or abandon it, we bring a better message or than that, or at least the like of it. So this suggests that only Allah, when he brings a message, his message, which he then abrogates. So in the previous ayat in Surah Mujadila, ayat 2, what they were practicing was not what they were told to do prior to that by Allah. So it was just a culture of theirs that they were practicing by calling their wives zihar, the backs of their mothers. And so this to be noted too. So in Surah Nahl, ayat, I think it's 101, and Allah knows very well the need of what He reveals. Yet when we replace a revelation with another revelation, they say to you, you are only a fabricator. So this ayat makes it very clear now what I said previously, that he repeals his or cancels his revelations for better ones, like we're told in Surah Baqarah ayat 106, and this is Surah Nahl ayat 101 here on your right hand. So I hope this is clear that by these two ayats on abrogation, that firstly the abrogation happens only when Allah brings an ayat, reveals an ayat, and then abrogates it. So if someone says that if there are contradictory ayats, a Muslim says that there are contradictory ayats, you take the later one. Well, you can take the later one, but not in this case. For example, the example I gave you, Surah Mujadila ayat 2 and Surah Ahzab ayat 6, uh, that here in Surah Mujadila, Allah says that none can be your mothers, and it's a false statement they make, and a statement contemptible or despicable. So this point is clear that whatever the religious Muslim religious scholars say about contradictory ayats, that we take the later one from the former one, which means that the former one, which is contradictory to the later one, is abrogated. So it's not like that in this case. In Surah Mujadila verse 2 case and Surah Azab verse 6 case, where Allah says in Surah Azab verse 6 that the wives of Prophet Muhammad are the mothers of the believers. Now, the believers can take them as their mothers. Then again in Surah Azab verse 4, Allah states, nor does He regard, meaning Allah regards, as your mothers those of your wives whom you desert by zihar, calling them as such, calling them as such. Nor does He regard those whom you adopt as your children, as your own real children. These are mere words that you speak, but Allah declares the truth, and He guides to the straight path. And now, Surah Azab, verse 5, call them by their real fathers. This is more just and equitable in the sight of Allah. But if you do not know the names of their fathers, then they are your brothers in faith and your friends or wards. And no blame shall lie on you with regard to any mistake you may have unintentionally made before in such a case. So he says that the Prophet Muhammad made a mistake by adopting Zaid, so that was a mistake, unintentional. He has put it here in ayat 5 of Surah Azab. And then goes on to say before, but you are accountable for that which you willfully and premeditatingly do. So this means that Prophet Muhammad made a mistake by taking someone else's son as his adopted son by through a pagan Arab custom, and so this was a mistake he made, and so he says, that's unintentional mistake, and so then we see in the ayat. In fact, we see in both the ayats 4 and 5 calling them as such, not to call them as such your mothers or your children, your adopted children, as your own children, taking them because he doesn't regard it. And then again in 5 we see, call them, sorry I didn't read this properly, call them after their real fathers' names, meaning this is more just and equitable in the sight of Allah. But if you do not know their names, the names of their fathers, then they are your brothers in faith. So even calling them as sons may not be allowed. However, in Surah Azab, verse 5, you see God pointed out here indirectly to Prophet Muhammad that he made an unintentional mistake by taking Zaid as his adopted son. Not only that, through the pagan Arab idol worshipping custom, and calling him a son, calling them, call them, the adopted ones, after the names of their real fathers. This is more just and equitable in the sight of Allah. But if you do not know the names of their fathers, then they are your brothers in faith and your friends or wards. So it could mean that you're not supposed to even, not only that you have adopted him by the pagan Arab idol worshipping custom, but that you're not supposed to call him, give him your name, or maybe that is a bit vague here. But so that's to even call Zed your son, but now call him your brother in faith or your friend or ward. So that is a bit vague. But what is clear here, excuse me, is that Prophet Muhammad made an unintentional mistake, right? This is stated in Surah Azab, ayat 5. Then that's why I had to take Surah Mujadila, ayat 2, which is very clear against the polytheists or Arabs who used to practice this kind of custom or rule by calling their wives the backs of their mothers, calling them the backs of their mothers when wanting to divorce them. So that is very clear from Surah Mujadila, ayat 2. Now, coming to Surah Azab, ayat 6 again, where the wives are made wives of Prophet are made the believers' mothers. So that would be a definite, very clear, simple contradiction between this ayat of Surah Azab, ayat 6, and Surah Mujadila, ayat 2 also, and Surah Azab, ayats 4 and 5 also. So this very clear. And thus you cannot use the abrogatory verses from the Quran on this and apply it on this case. Hence ruling out abrogation and substitution ayats of the Quran. In this case, this means that from Surah Nisa 82 we find why do they not ponder over the Quran? Had it been from anyone other than Allah, they would surely have found a good deal of inconsistency therein or contradiction, right, in the Quran ayats, which I found and I showed it here and proved it that this is an inconsistency, contradiction in the Quran ayat Surah Mujadila ayat 2 against Surah Azab ayat 6, and by also taking Surah Azab ayats 4 and 5 to prove that. So this means that this Quran is from other than Allah. Thank you so much. For now, I leave you with this, hoping that I've made it easy for you to break free from this false religion which has cast so much fear in you